So we are at Alnmouth beach, so just waiting for the foraging course to start. So I'll try and film as much as I can on the way around, and hopefully I can get some good footage on here. So see you in a bit. Bye.
Which means that we are allowed to forage and collect any of these for your own personal use. If you're selling it commercially, you're not allowed. You're allowed to forage for the 4 F's. So that's fruits, flowers, foliage and fungi. It is, absolutely. So our ground elder, part of our carrot family, our wild carrot family. So some of you might recognise those types of leaves if you grow sort of herbs and things like that, based in the same sort of family genus. Some herbs have a very similar leaf. I think from a distance, it kind of looks like the Canadian flag, like a sycamore sort of style. And then recognize it? Doesn't matter, that's why we're here. Okay, so all of this, good indicator of how it would grow in a big cluster like this with lots and lots forming. I'll pass out a few of these so you can sort of pass them along and have a little bit of a look. Now when I say have a look, whenever we're looking at plants we are looking at key identifiers. So what that means is what's growing, what it's growing like, what the shape is, what the look of the leaves are, and particularly the stem. Now the main bit I want you to look at, hopefully if you have one of these now, is the stem. Now if you hold the stem to the light and roll it around, what can you see? Hold it to the light, roll it around, what can you see and then not see, hopefully? What were you saying? Say what you were going to say there. Yes, absolutely. So this is chickweed. Okay, now many of you might have heard of chickweed. It's part of that pea family. So it has that lovely sort of fresh garden pea taste. I would love. I get in trouble for throwing. So there are literally there is a foraging map of these that I have at home on my wall, and there are about 16 to 17 different things. Some people call them sweethearts because they hug together. These are part of the goosegrass family. Every member of the goosegrass family is non-toxic and safe for consumption. However, anyone who's ever touched these sticky weeds and felt them will realise that the texture is not something you want to repeat. So that's the easiest way to say it. Some of them can be a little, they're actually really nice places. Pinch it off and make sure it doesn't go in the basket, okay? It just makes life so much easier for us later when we're sorting through things to go through it effectively without ruining all the other stuff. As you all well know, if you've ever had a leak or anything like that, if you mud that they get inside, it's impossible to wash. So just, if I can get everyone to do me a massive favour, things like that, and it can be a little bit just irritant. Okay, so this is something I would eat raw as a sort of lettuce alternative. However, it's a really good prime example of what I mean about sort of making sure that we're foraging ethically. At the moment, this is only one plant. So I wouldn't recommend anybody ever takes anything from just one plant, but it's a really good sort of really keen thing to do because you're not really going to misidentify it. It's very fresh. It feels just like a lettuce leaf. When you pull it, it has that natural sort of lettuce leaf crunch about it. It's a really, really nice, often called miner's lettuce because you'll often find it growing in the same sort of places that miners would have tended to do things, usually on the outskirts. A lot of them would have supplemented their sort of diets, particularly sort of where I'm from and particularly around here where mining was quite prevalent. You'd find that a lot of the time they would be getting things like, throughout down south it'd be things like Cornish pasties, and it'd be things that are covered in pastry that do not break when you drop them. That's the type of thing that we'd be referring to. And as you can imagine, if you eat that for 60 hours a week, that's not really going to be particularly good for the old colon. Really, really good sort of as a sort of vegetable to help aid that digestion, help sort of keep yourself a little bit more healthy than just living off gelatin. You know, they do have a really, really nice sort of strong smell. Later on in the year, as I say, these will get about 6 foot tall, and they will end up with that umbel, those classic sort of upside down umbrella shaped flowers, white flowers on the top. This is the only member of that family that's going to have fur. Some of them might have hairs, but this one will feel distinctly furry. I have to say this, but it does, because it does have those same chemical enzymes. If you suffer from things like eczema, it has been known to agitate and make your skin irritable. But it is non-toxic to touch, non-toxic to be around, you're absolutely fine, but it does need to be cooked. It does contain compounds that can really, really upset your stomach, particularly agitate kidney stones if it's uncooked. But you're giving it 10 minutes in there, 10 minutes. These stems are the bits we want to look at. If you look at the shape of the stems, they kind of look just like celery. But they have that really sort of strong aromatic flavour. It's just a much nicer version. When they get really big, they get tougher, so you have to cook them for longer, much like you would do with anything. If it's a small carrot, it takes less time to cook than a big carrot. It's just as simple as that. Keep an eye out though, because if we find more than sort of 2 patches together, we just want to be as sustainable as possible. Because if that is here now and that is flourishing, then chances are, just through natural germination, it will end up getting to a point where next year, hopefully. Though we do fancy ever doing it, you can't put up with that right amount of confidence and pressure. However, inevitably, no matter whether you wear gloves or not, if you start collecting nettles, you are eventually going to get stung. Now, historically, what do you do when you sting yourself with a nettle? Dock leaves, absolutely. Now, I hate to break it to all of you, but that's kind of a placebo. It does work, and if it works for you, continue to do it. However, there's not really many medical benefits to dockweed. They are completely edible. They are absolutely safe. They're non-toxic. However, you can use the little seeds that grow on them, those little brownish seeds. You can pickle them and use them as capers. But they're horrible. They taste like grass. You can take those brown little seeds and you can grind them up to make flour for bread, but it's horrible and it makes it taste like grass. It is your choice, but it is non-toxic. However, this one here, big long strands, massive central rosette. There are hundreds of them around here. This is about the maximum size the leaves will grow, and they will often have that little spike, like the one just behind you there, central spike going through with the seed pods at the end. Same again, the seed pods at the end of this is called narrow leaf plantain or ribwort plantain. Okay, now all plantains in the UK are non-toxic. By the coast, usually we find something called reindeer plantain, which has got sort of, as you would imagine, more like antlers on it. You can find this, you'll find loads of this on grasslands, particularly find it everywhere on the golf course. If you've ever seen one that looks a bit like a tennis racket, those ones are the broadleaf plantain. All of them are non-toxic, and all of them are full, historically, especially in the World War I, they would use this as a sort of, they would chew this in their mouths, rub this all together to make a spit poultice. Now this is naturally, I like to refer to this plant as all of the antis. Antifungal, antiseptic, antibacterial, antimicrobial, all of the things that you want a plant to be in order to help you medically wise. This is what you'll get from it. It is an amazing, amazing plant. If you have a sting, a reaction, a bite from any insect at all, this is the plant that I would refer you to. It is going to give you that natural instant relief. Just to sort of hopefully get a couple of leaves here, hopefully show you the amount of water content in this. Sorry. Give this a rub, give this a squeeze. Now historically we would do a spit poultice, which is when you run it through your mouth. It makes a self-adhesive sort of stickiness, which you can add if you ever cut yourself in the wild on a bramble bush or anything like that. However, after COVID we try not to recommend people put things in the mouth and rub them around and then splash it on your skin. However, just to sort of give you an idea, this is 3 leaves here. So, see the water coming down from there. Instant relief from any bite, any sting. Straight away it will cover you in this sort of green stuff. You can rub this on something the same way you would do the dock leaf, but there's much more moisture in it. Massive plant. You can see the broadleaf fatty one there as well. So it's about the same family. The distinctive thing is it has those ribs, so when you pull it, you might dehydrate them. My grandma used to make sort of boiled sweets out of them, put them in pies, lots of different things you can do with it. There's a lot more than you can do with this plant than you might think. Okay, at this time of the year, you'll start to see all the new shoots will start to come out. Now, historically, this was incredibly sort of versatile plant in regards to your mouth health. So this would be, imagine this as sort of nature's way of keeping your mouth clean, keeping it healthy. Each one of these little leaves, of which you can do this if you choose to, the new little shoots are incredibly astringent. And what astringent means is it absorbs things. So if you, for example, had an ulcer or a, what are the other ones called in the mouth? I never remember what they're called. I always forget this exact word. If you have any form of bacteria in your mouth, it will help absorb it. These have an incredible capability when you put them in your mouth to take out all the moisture very quickly and take out any toxins. You can brew these, the flowers particularly, into teas. It will be quite a sort of soothing tea, and it will be really, really good for mouth and throat health. Okay, so any sort of bacteria that sort of builds up. This, as a combination with charcoal, would make an incredible sort of, basically sort of keep your mouth and oral hygiene up to date. So these little leaves, I say, you can use. They are non-toxic, but this is not the type of thing that you would necessarily eat. You can make teas out of it just because it's very tough. Instantly, if you put this in your mouth, you'll feel it sort of suck up that moisture straight away. By all means, have a look at this. But all of you will see that these always grow. They re-root. So anyone who's ever tripped over one of these bad boys will know that it really, really hurts. In fact, to the back of my leg, I've got an incredible scar from one of these horrible things. Prickly, spiky, nasty thing. I don't know if anyone's ever been pricked by one of these before, but it's not a nice experience. Gorse, a wonderful, wonderful little plant, similar to, weirdly, the chickweed that we collected in that little basket there, sir, is in the same family as this one. It blows my mind how things work. This is in the pea family. Gorse is a very sort of, it is an absolute very, very hardy shrub, year-round growth. So no matter what time of the year we come to, flowers is one of those ones I always get asked about foraging, okay? You are legally allowed to forage for flowers, however, I always like to think it depends on the time of the year. For example, in July, I tend to avoid them because that's when bees are most prevalent. However, use your discretion. So if they're, for example, here, I do not have to worry for 1 second about sustainability of this particular thing. Because at all times of the year, particularly by the coasts, these gorse will constantly flourish. They can, plant to plant species, because there's such variety in them, there can be a massive taste and flavour difference, okay? You can take these little petals are the bits that we want, okay? Now, it's really important that I say this because you might see that on the tips of these, in between the spikes, they have little round green bits. Those are the actual peas themselves. Now, remember when I said about effort? Those peas are edible. However, in order to make them edible and safe for consumption, in this state they are poisonous. What we have to do is we have to release those tannins again. So as I say, really bad for your stomach, not a good thing to have inside your system. Those tannins need to be taken out. So in order to do that, you have to precariously pick through very, very spiky bits in order to get a tiny little thing that's smaller than the gap underneath your fingernail. You then have to put them in a bottle, you have to put them in a pan with boiling water. You have to boil them down until all the brown comes out. And then you have to empty them and keep repeating that process again and again and again and again until you end up with what is a hybridized. Not the only, so that generally you can get species that intertwine with each other. I have seen it before where the catkins on a silver birch, for example, are supposed to have 2. I've seen them with 3, I've seen them with 4, I've seen them with 5. It can be a bit confusing. All you need to look at is the main body of the stem. As long as you have those horizontal little raised lines, that papery white silver bark, sometimes with reddish little splotches, that it is a non-toxic tree. Now the reason we're pointing this out today is because it's a non-toxic tree, it means that all of these little leaves, for example, these leaflets coming out now, all of them are completely edible. We're going to go to the tree over there to get those in a minute. We're going to use this for a different purpose. At this time of the year, so set for centuries, we'd use the bark, cut the bark off, and it's used a very, very high protein powder in order to make flour and things like that. Really, really good for us. Been used for centuries for making things like hollowed out canoes by sort of Native Americans. Anyone who's ever been sort of for bushcraft wise, you can make sort of waterproof cups out of them. You can make an abundance of people do basket weaving sort of things out of them. They're an amazing, amazing tree. So I'm glad that some of us have managed to find ways, which is good. Let's open up our food box. Good, well that's at least half of it that haven't got. Vinaigrette is going to sort of cover some of our wild raw forageables from today, and it's going to kind of allow those flavours to sit in a little bit whilst we're waiting for everything else to get ready. Beautiful. So just half that cabbage, so just split it in half and cut out the heart. I shouldn't have to tell you what to do. I apologise. Force of habit. Some people don't know how to use a knife. Awesome job. So please feel free for everyone, feel free to dig in. I could serve it for you, but I'm not going to.
So does that?
Now,
Oh, sorry. Oh, no, you don't worry about it.
sorry to interrupt. As well, I'll put up with some of our dandelion. I am so used to it. I literally just had it. Just syrup, but I just.
Which has come from that place in Scotland.
Yes, it is. So these are all the Forager's Kitchen, which is one of. Right then, have I missed one? Oh, someone's very keen. Glorious. Let's make that go. So who's got? Where are our flowers? Perfect. So what we will do is we will have a nice. Bar. This is the problem with the wind. It's not our friend. Me. So we've got dandelion petals in here.